The massive crystal spires of the Galactic Council's headquarters pierced through the purple clouds of Zentara Prime, like gleaming needles. Ambassador Kethril of the Viridian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes as he entered the grand chamber, his 4 eyes scanning the assembled delegates with barely concealed disgust. Today would mark a turning point in galactic history, though not in the way the Council expected. The chamber buzzed with excitement as representatives from over 300 species gathered in their designated sections. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the various atmospheric requirements, creating a symphony of hissing and humming that had become the Council's trademark sound. At the center of the vast circular room, a holographic display showed the current galactic map, with humanity's small territory glowing an innocuous blue in the outer rim. "The motion before us today," announced High Chancellor Zexvara, her crystalline voice echoing through the chamber's acoustic enhancement system, "concerns the immediate annexation of human space and the redistribution of their resources among the founding species of this council." Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly. The Corvan delegates' tentacles writhed with anticipation, while the insectoid Thrix representatives clicked their mandibles in what passed for applause among their kind. Only a few species remained silent, their representatives shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony Coalition stood, his massive frame casting shadows across nearby delegates. "Honored Chancellor, the humans have repeatedly refused our generous offers of integration. They insist on maintaining their primitive concepts of independence and sovereignty. Such defiance cannot be tolerated in a civilized galaxy." The holographic display shifted to show recent human colonies, their defensive installations looking pathetic compared to the Council's massive fleet arrays. Humanity had been in space for barely 2 centuries, their technology crude and their military laughably small. They controlled only 47 systems, most of them barely habitable frontier worlds that more advanced species had deemed worthless. "The humans possess no significant military capability," continued Veltar, his voice dripping with condescension. "Their largest ships barely qualify as frigates by our standards. Their population numbers less than 50 billion across all their worlds combined. They are, in essence, a minor inconvenience that has somehow persisted longer than anticipated." Chancellor Zexvara nodded approvingly. "Indeed, our intelligence reports indicate that humanity's total military consists of fewer than 2,000 vessels, most of which are converted civilian ships with basic armaments. Their ground forces number less than 10 million soldiers across their entire territory. By contrast, the Viridian Empire alone maintains a fleet of over 50,000 warships." The Sathari ambassador, her scales shimmering with bioluminescent patterns, raised a clawed hand. "Chancellor, what of the human ambassador? Should we not hear their response to our generous final offer?" A ripple of laughter echoed through the chamber. The human ambassador, Sarah Chen, sat alone in the designated human section, her small frame dwarfed by the massive seats designed for larger species. Her simple diplomatic uniform stood in stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by other delegates. "The human representative may speak," Chancellor Zexvara said with obvious reluctance. Sarah Chen stood slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. Despite being outnumbered thousands to 1, she showed no signs of fear or intimidation. Her voice, when she spoke, carried clearly through the chamber's enhancement system. "Honored delegates," she began, her tone respectful but firm. "Humanity appreciates the Council's continued interest in our affairs. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of annexation. Our species values freedom and self-determination above all else. We have no desire to become subjects of any empire, no matter how benevolent their intentions might be." The chamber erupted in derisive laughter. The Corvan delegate's translator barely kept up with the stream of insults directed at the human representative. Ambassador Kethril rose from his seat, his 4 eyes fixing on the human with predatory intensity. "Little creature, you speak of freedom as if you have the power to maintain it. Your entire species could be eliminated in a single day's worth of orbital bombardment. Your technology is primitive, your military is non-existent, and your worlds are defenseless. What possible reason could you have for refusing our generous offer?" Sarah Chen's expression never wavered. "Ambassador Kethril, we refuse because it is our right to do so. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and countless other disasters through determination and unity. We will not surrender our independence simply because you have bigger ships. The silence that followed was broken by Chancellor Zexvara's crystalline laughter. Such admirable delusion. Very well, human. Since your species insists on this course of action, we shall proceed with the annexation as planned. The vote will now commence. The voting process was swift and decisive. Of the 317 member species present, 314 voted in favor of immediate annexation. Only 3 species abstained and none voted against. The margin was so overwhelming that several delegates didn't even bother to cast their votes. The motion passes with overwhelming support, announced Chancellor Zexvara. Human space is hereby declared open for annexation and resource extraction. Member species may submit claims for specific systems through the Standard Colonial Administration Office. Sarah Chen requested permission to make one final statement. The Chancellor, amused by the humans' persistence, granted the request. Honored delegates, Sarah said, her voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. You have made your decision and we respect your right to make it. However, I must inform you that humanity will resist this annexation with every resource at our disposal. We are not the helpless prey animals you believe us to be. The warning was met with more laughter and dismissive gestures. As the session concluded, delegates began discussing which human worlds they would claim, treating the entire affair as little more than a business transaction. What none of them realized was that Sarah Chen's words carried a deeper meaning than they understood. Hidden in her diplomatic language was a coded message that had just activated humanity's most closely guarded secret. Across human space, ancient protocols were coming online, and sleeping giants were beginning to stir. The Council had made their choice, and soon they would discover the true cost of underestimating humanity's resolve. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood in the command center of Titan Station, watching as holographic displays came alive with activity across human space. The coded signal from Ambassador Chen had reached every corner of humanity's territory, triggering protocols that had been in place for over a century but never activated. Admiral, we're receiving confirmations from all sectors, reported Commander Lisa Park, her fingers dancing across her control interface. Project Sleeping Giant is fully operational. All hidden installations are coming online. Rodriguez nodded grimly as he watched the tactical display update in real time. What the Galactic Council saw as humanity's pathetic 47 systems was merely the tip of the iceberg. Hidden throughout the galaxy were over 300 concealed military installations, each one disguised as mining operations, research stations, or simple trading posts. The largest of these hidden facilities was buried deep within an asteroid field in the Kepler system. Completely invisible to conventional sensors, for the past 100 years it had been producing warships using technology that humanity had deliberately kept secret from galactic civilization. While the Council believed human ships were primitive converted civilian vessels, the truth was far more complex. Bring up the fleet status report, Rodriguez ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the true extent of humanity's military might. Where the Council's intelligence suggested 2,000 converted civilian ships, the reality showed over 30,000 purpose-built warships of various classes. Each one incorporated technology that made them invisible to most scanning methods, allowing them to move freely throughout the galaxy without detection. Captain Sarah Nakamura, the station's tactical officer, approached with a data pad in hand. Admiral, our scout networks are reporting massive Council fleet movements toward human space. The Viridian Empire is mobilizing their 7th and 12th battle groups, approximately 8,000 ships total. The Corvan Confederation is sending their entire border fleet, another 6,000 vessels. Expected numbers, Rodriguez replied. What about the others? The Thrix Collective is contributing 4,000 ships, mostly carriers with their bioengineered fighter swarms. The Hegemony Coalition is sending their pride and joy, the Devastator-class dreadnought Worldbreaker, along with its entire support fleet. Rodriguez allowed himself a slight smile. The Worldbreaker was indeed an impressive vessel, stretching nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern, and capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag within hours. The Council clearly intended to make an example of humanity, using overwhelming force to demonstrate what happened to species that defied their authority. Sir, Commander Park called out, we're receiving priority transmissions from our deep cover assets throughout Council space. They're requesting permission to begin Phase 2 operations. For over 2 centuries, humanity had been placing operatives throughout galactic civilization, not spies in the traditional sense, but ordinary humans who had integrated themselves into alien societies, taking jobs as technicians, traders, researchers, and even military advisors. The Council's arrogance had made this remarkably easy, as most species viewed humans as harmlessly primitive and beneath suspicion. "Grant permission for Phase 2, Rodriguez ordered. "But remind them that operational security is paramount. We need them in place for the long term." Across the galaxy, these hidden operatives began their work. In the Viridian Empire, a human technician named David Kim had spent 15 years working on their fleet maintenance systems. His access to the Empire's military databases allowed him to quietly introduce subtle modifications to their ship's navigation and targeting systems. The changes were so minor that they wouldn't be detected until the ships were in active combat. On Corvin Prime, Dr. Elena Vasquez had established herself as a respected researcher in gravitational physics. Her position at the Corvin Science Institute gave her access to their most advanced weapon designs, including the quantum disruptors that the Confederation considered their ultimate advantage. For years she had been studying these weapons, learning their weaknesses and developing countermeasures. The Thrix Collective presented a unique challenge due to their hive-mind nature, but humanity had found ways to adapt. By introducing specific chemical compounds into the collective's food supply, human biochemist Dr. James Wong had been able to create subtle disruptions in their neural networks. The effects wouldn't be noticeable until the hive mind was under extreme stress, such as during a major military campaign. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, humanity's true fleet began to move. The ships emerged from hidden bases disguised as asteroids, derelict hulks, and abandoned stations. Each vessel was a masterpiece of stealth technology, incorporating lessons learned from studying captured alien equipment over the decades. The flagship of this hidden armada was the UHSV Retribution, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the Council's largest vessels. Unlike the crude, bulky designs favored by most alien species, human ships were sleek and efficient, their hulls incorporating adaptive camouflage that could mimic empty space or asteroid fields. Admiral Rodriguez received a priority communication from the Retribution's commanding officer, Admiral Janet Hayes. Her image appeared on the main display, her expression calm despite the magnitude of the situation they faced. "Marcus, we're ready to begin deployment," she reported. "All battle groups are at full strength and awaiting orders. Our stealth systems are functioning perfectly. The Council fleets are moving exactly as our projections predicted." "Excellent work, Janet. Remember, we need to let them make the first move. The galaxy needs to see that we're defending ourselves, not starting an aggressive war." "Understood. Our forward scouts report that the Council's combined fleet will reach the outer edge of human space in approximately 48 hours. They're making no attempt at stealth or subtlety. Apparently, they want everyone to witness humanity's destruction." Rodriguez nodded. The Council's arrogance would be their downfall. They had spent so many centuries as the dominant power in the galaxy that they couldn't conceive of any species being able to challenge them effectively. Their intelligence gathering was focused on obvious military assets and major population centers, completely missing humanity's distributed and hidden infrastructure. "Admiral," Commander Park interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. President Wilson wishes to address the fleet." The display shifted to show President Maria Wilson in the Oval Office, her expression resolute despite the enormous pressure she faced. Behind her, the flags of United Earth and the Human Colonial Alliance stood as symbols of unity that the Council had never bothered to understand. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice carrying to every ship and station in the hidden fleet, "today marks the end of our long masquerade. For over 2 centuries we have lived quietly among the stars, allowing other species to believe us weak and primitive. We did this not out of cowardice, but out of wisdom. We knew that one day the galaxy's power structures would demand our submission or destruction." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "That day has arrived. The Galactic Council has voted to annex our territory and redistribute our people as they see fit. They believe us helpless, defenseless, and worthy only of pity or contempt. They are about to learn the true meaning of human determination." The President's words echoed through the vast network of hidden facilities and concealed fleets, reaching every human in the galaxy. Farmers on frontier worlds, Researchers in alien universities, traders in distant markets all received the same message. The time for hiding was over. "We do not seek war," President Wilson continued, "but we will not accept slavery. We do not desire conquest, but we will defend our freedom with every resource at our disposal." To our allies who stood with us in the council, know that humanity remembers its friends. To those who voted for our destruction, prepare to face the consequences of your choice. As the transmission ended, Admiral Rodriguez felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. Humanity was about to reveal its true strength to a galaxy that had underestimated them for far too long. The Council's fleets were approaching, confident in their overwhelming superiority, unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap ever conceived. Fleet Admiral Zek Thara of the Viridian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. Around him, his bridge crew monitored the progress of the largest military operation in galactic history. Over 40,000 ships from 6 different species moved in perfect formation toward human space, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "all fleet groups report ready status. The human colonies are completely defenseless. Our long-range sensors detect no significant military activity in any of their systems." Zek Thara's mandibles clicked in amusement. The humans had made no apparent effort to defend themselves, just as intelligence had predicted. Their few patrol ships had been spotted fleeing toward the inner systems, presumably to make a final desperate stand around their homeworld. "Communications. Open a channel to all fleet commanders," Zek Thara ordered. "It's time to remind the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council's authority." The massive viewscreen displayed the commanders of each fleet group. Admiral Velkar of the Corvan Confederation, General Thrix Prime 7 of the Collective, Supreme Commander Zirion of the Hegemony Coalition, and 3 others representing the minor species that had contributed forces to the operation. "Fellow commanders," Zek Thara began, "today we write history. The human infestation will be cleansed from the galaxy, and their territory will be distributed among our rightful civilizations. Intelligence confirms that human resistance will be minimal at best." Admiral Velkar's image nodded approvingly. "My quantum disruptor squadrons are eager to test their weapons on human settlements. It should provide excellent data for future military applications." General Thrix Prime 7's compound eyes gleamed with predatory hunger. "The Collective's bioships require fresh genetic material for our next generation of warriors. Human DNA will serve this purpose adequately." What none of the commanders noticed was the subtle technical difficulties beginning to plague their fleets. Navigation systems developed tiny errors in their calculations. Targeting computers required frequent recalibration. Life support systems experienced minor fluctuations that forced maintenance crews to work overtime. Each problem was small and easily explained as normal operational stress, but together they formed a pattern that would soon become impossible to ignore. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her laboratory on Corvan Prime, monitoring the quantum disruptor systems through her legitimate research access. Her modifications to the weapon designs had been so subtle that even she was impressed by their elegance. The disruptors would function perfectly during testing and training exercises, but under the stress of actual combat, they would experience catastrophic resonance failures. Meanwhile, on the Viridian homeworld, David Kim watched his sabotage unfold through the Empire's own monitoring systems. The navigation errors he had introduced would become progressively worse as the fleet moved deeper into human space. Ships would begin arriving at different coordinates than intended, disrupting carefully planned formation attacks. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Lieutenant Kexaval noticed something odd in the sensor readings. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from several asteroids in the nearby system. The readings are inconsistent with natural mineral deposits." Zek Thara barely glanced at the report. "Probably human mining operations. Focus on military targets, Lieutenant." The truth was far more concerning than the Admiral realized. The asteroids were actually concealed weapons platforms, each one armed with humanity's most advanced defensive systems. Hidden beneath layers of manufactured rock and debris were particle beam arrays capable of punching through the heaviest armor plating. As the Council fleets pressed deeper into human territory, they began encountering the first signs of organized resistance. Small groups of human ships appeared on their sensors, seeming to flee in panic before the overwhelming alien armada. The council commanders smiled at this display of expected cowardice, ordering pursuit to prevent any humans from escaping to spread word of their defeat. Captain Alex Morrison commanded one of these apparently fleeing human vessels, the destroyer Phoenix. His ship's stealth systems made it appear to be a standard civilian vessel converted for military use, exactly what Council intelligence expected to find. In reality, the Phoenix was armed with weapons that could theoretically engage targets on equal terms, with much larger alien warships. "Captain," reported his tactical officer, "we have 6 Viridian cruisers in pursuit. They're maintaining formation and following our projected course exactly." Morrison smiled grimly. "Perfect. Take us through checkpoint 7 and prepare for the surprise." The Phoenix led its pursuers into what appeared to be empty space near a small moon. The Viridian cruisers closed in eagerly, their commanders anticipating an easy victory to mark the beginning of humanity's destruction. Their sensors detected nothing unusual about the region until it was far too late, hidden within the moon's surface were massive electromagnetic pulse generators that had been disguised as mining equipment for over 50 years. When the Phoenix transmitted the activation code, these generators fired simultaneously, creating an energy surge that overwhelmed the Viridian ship's defensive systems. The alien cruisers found themselves blind and helpless as their electronics failed. Before they could restore power, concealed weapon platforms emerged from the moon's surface, revealing themselves for the first time in decades. The battle was over in minutes, with all 6 Viridian vessels either destroyed or disabled. Similar scenes played out across the outer edge of human space, as the Council's advance forces encountered humanity's true defensive network. Asteroid bases revealed themselves to annihilate surprised alien squadrons. Hidden minefields activated to cripple entire battle groups. Space stations that had appeared to be abandoned suddenly came online, their weapon systems targeting the nearest Council ships. Back on the Eternal Dominion, reports of these encounters began filtering into Admiral Zekthara's command staff. Initially dismissed as minor resistance from converted civilian vessels, the pattern of losses quickly became impossible to ignore. "Admiral," his communications officer reported with growing alarm, "we've lost contact with Advanced Squadrons 7, 12, and 15. The last transmissions indicated they were engaging human forces of unknown configuration." Zekthara's confidence began to waver for the first time since the operation began. "Unknown configuration? Explain." "Sir, the reports describe human ships that don't match any known specifications. Vessels with advanced stealth capabilities, weapons that shouldn't exist given their technology level, and defensive systems that appear to be generations ahead of what our intelligence suggested." The Admiral's tactical display updated to show the locations of lost squadrons. The pattern was clear and disturbing. Every advance force that had penetrated beyond the outer edge of human space had either been destroyed or had gone silent. The easy conquest they had anticipated was becoming something entirely different. "Get me a direct channel to Corvin Fleet Command," Zekthara ordered. "I need to speak with Admiral Velkar immediately." When the connection established, Velkar's image appeared on screen, his expression troubled. "Zekthara, we're experiencing significant difficulties. My quantum disruptor squadrons are reporting weapon malfunctions across the entire fleet. The targeting systems are experiencing cascading failures that our technicians can't explain." Before Zekthara could respond, another communication came in from General Thrix Prime 7. The collective's leader appeared agitated, his compound eyes reflecting stress patterns that the Admiral had never seen before. "The bioships are experiencing neural disruption," the general reported. "Our hive mind connection is becoming unstable. Individual ships are losing coordination with the collective consciousness. This should be impossible given our biological integration systems." Admiral Zekthara stared at the reports flooding his command center. Navigation systems failing, weapons malfunctioning, coordination breaking down, and advance forces disappearing without explanation. What had begun as a simple annexation operation was rapidly becoming a nightmare. "All commands halt the advance," he ordered. "Reform defensive positions and await further orders. Something is very wrong here." The massive Council fleet, which had been advancing confidently into human space just hours earlier, now found itself scattered and confused. Technical problems plagued every vessel. Communication between fleet groups became increasingly difficult, and the humans they had expected to crush were nowhere to be found. In the hidden command centers throughout human space, military leaders watched their plans unfold with grim satisfaction. The Council had walked directly into humanity's trap, and now they were beginning to realize that their prey might actually be predators. Admiral Janet Hayes stood in the command center of the UHSV Retribution, watching as her fleet moved into position around the confused Council forces. For 2 days, the alien armada had been struggling with system failures and mysterious attacks from seemingly nowhere. Now it was time for humanity to reveal the true scope of their preparation. "All battle groups report ready, Admiral," Captain Torres announced from his position at the tactical station. "We have the Council fleet completely surrounded. They still don't know we're here." The stealth technology that humanity had perfected over the past century was performing flawlessly. Over 30,000 human warships hung invisible in space around the 40,000 Council vessels, like sharks circling wounded prey. The alien sensors detected nothing unusual. Their attention focused on the technical problems plaguing their fleet. "Admiral," Commander Sarah Walsh reported from the intelligence station, "our operatives confirm that the sabotage programs are working perfectly. The Viridian navigation systems are now operating with a 15% error margin. Corvin quantum disruptors are experiencing random power fluctuations. The Thrix Collective's hive mind coordination has degraded by 30%. Hayes nodded with satisfaction. The years of preparation were paying off exactly as planned. Humanity had never intended to face the Council in a fair fight. Instead, they had chosen to ensure that any fight would be anything but fair. "Communications, prepare to transmit on all Council frequencies," Hayes ordered. "It's time to introduce ourselves properly." Across the scattered Council fleet, communication systems suddenly activated without authorization. Admiral Zekthara stared in shock as his viewscreen displayed a human woman in an unfamiliar military uniform, standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a warship far more advanced than anything in his intelligence files. "Greetings, Admiral Zekthara," Admiral Hayes said calmly. "I am Admiral Janet Hayes of the United Human Space Navy. On behalf of humanity, I formally reject your attempted annexation of our territory." Zekthara's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "Impossible. Our intelligence shows that humans possess no significant military capability. Your largest ships are converted civilian vessels." Hayes smiled coldly. "Your intelligence is exactly what we wanted you to believe. For over 2 centuries, humanity has been preparing for this day. We knew that eventually, the galaxy's power structures would demand our submission. We chose to be ready." The communication spread simultaneously to every ship in the Council fleet, causing panic as commanders realized they were speaking to representatives of a military force they had believed to be non-existent. Admiral Velkar of the Corvin Confederation interrupted the transmission. "Human, you speak boldly for someone commanding a handful of primitive vessels. Even if your intelligence was flawed, we still outnumber you by a significant margin." "Do you?" Hayes asked. "Computer, illuminate the fleet." Across the vast volume of space surrounding the Council forces, 30,000 human warships suddenly became visible. Their stealth systems deactivated in perfect synchronization, revealing a fleet that dwarfed even the Council's massive armada. The alien commanders watched in horror as their tactical displays updated to show human vessels in every direction. The UHSV Retribution itself was a sight that shattered the Council's assumptions about human technology. Stretching over 20 kilometers from bow to stern, the massive dreadnought made even the hegemony's Worldbreaker look modest by comparison. Its sleek hull incorporated design elements that suggested technology decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. "This is impossible," General Thrix Prime 7 transmitted, his compound eyes reflecting patterns of disbelief and fear. "Our surveys of human space showed no construction facilities capable of building vessels of this scale." "That's because you were looking in the wrong places," Hayes replied. "Our primary shipyards are hidden in dimensions your sensors can't detect. The facilities you observed were merely the ones we wanted you to see." The truth was even more remarkable than Hayes suggested. Humanity had developed dimensional folding technology that allowed them to build massive industrial complexes in pocket dimensions, accessible only through carefully concealed gateways. These hidden shipyards had been producing advanced warships for over a century, while the Council's intelligence services focused on humanity's deliberately primitive surface facilities. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the heavy cruiser Defiance, opened a private channel to her squadron leaders. All ships prepare to demonstrate our capabilities. Target designation Omega-7, quantum lance batteries, minimum power setting. A small asteroid approximately 50 kilometers from the Council fleet suddenly vanished in a brilliant flash of energy. The quantum lance weaponry that had destroyed it operated on principles that most Council species considered theoretical. Impossibilities. Supreme Commander Zerion of the Hegemony Coalition stared at his tactical readings in disbelief. The energy signature from that weapon discharge indicates a power output equivalent to our largest planetary bombardment systems. How did they miniaturize such technology? The same way we miniaturized everything else, Hayes answered. Through necessity and superior engineering. You see, Commander, when you're surrounded by predators, you have two choices: become prey or become an apex predator yourself. The psychological impact on the Council forces was immediate and devastating. Ship commanders who had been confident in their overwhelming superiority now found themselves trapped in the center of a formation of unknown human vessels, their own equipment failing around them, facing technology that shouldn't exist. Dr. Elena Vasquez, still monitoring the situation from her laboratory on Corvin Prime, activated the final phase of her sabotage program. Across the Corvin fleet, quantum disruptor arrays began experiencing cascading resonance failures. The weapons that the Confederation had planned to use for orbital bombardment of human worlds turned into useless scrap metal in the span of minutes. Admiral Velkar watched helplessly as his fleet's primary armament became inoperative. This cannot be happening. Our quantum disruptors are the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. They've never failed during field operations. They haven't failed, Hayes corrected. They've been sabotaged. For 15 years, one of our operatives has been working within your scientific community, learning your technology and preparing for this moment. Dr. Vasquez sends her regards. The revelation that humanity had placed deep cover operatives throughout Council space sent shockwaves through the alien command structure. If humans had infiltrated the Corvin scientific community, where else had they established themselves? How many other Council systems and fleets had been compromised? David Kim, monitoring the situation from his position within the Viridian maintenance network, activated his own final protocols. Navigation systems across the Viridian fleet began failing catastrophically, leaving their ships unable to coordinate movement or retreat. The proud 7th and 12th battle groups found themselves scattered and helpless, unable to form defensive formations or execute tactical maneuvers. Admiral Zekthara, Hayes continued, your navigation systems have been compromised for over a decade. Every time your technicians performed routine maintenance, they unknowingly installed updates provided by one of our operatives. Your fleet is now effectively immobilized. The Thrix Collective faced perhaps the most disturbing revelation of all. Dr. James Wong's biochemical sabotage had created subtle but critical disruptions in their hive-mind communication network. Individual bioships began losing contact with the collective consciousness, leaving their crews confused and disoriented. General Thrix Prime 7 experienced something no member of his species had felt in millennia: true isolation. The comforting presence of the collective mind flickered and faded, replaced by the terrifying experience of individual consciousness. What have you done to us? He demanded, his voice carrying emotions that the collective had long suppressed. We've given you a taste of what it means to be truly alone, Hayes replied. For 15 years, one of our biochemists has been working within your research facilities, studying your biological integration systems. The compounds he introduced into your food supply are now disrupting your neural networks. You're experiencing something that humans call individual thought. The Council fleet, which had entered human space as a confident armada of conquest, now found itself trapped, blind, and helpless. Their weapons were failing. Their navigation was compromised. Their communication networks were disrupted, and they were surrounded by a human fleet that shouldn't exist. But Admiral Hayes wasn't finished with her revelations. The true scope of humanity's preparations was far greater than even these demonstrations suggested, and the Council was about to learn that their nightmare was only beginning. Admiral Hayes watched the chaos unfolding among the Council fleet with cold satisfaction. The alien commanders were frantically attempting to re-establish control over their scattered forces, but every effort only revealed the depth of humanity's infiltration of their systems. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Council vessels. The crews are abandoning ship as their life support systems experience critical failures." Hayes nodded grimly. The sabotage programs had been designed with surgical precision. Rather than causing immediate catastrophic destruction, they created cascading system failures that left enemy ships helpless, but salvageable. Dead martyrs served no purpose, but living examples of humanity's capabilities would spread fear throughout the galaxy. "Grant safe passage to any crew abandoning ship," Hayes ordered. "Deploy rescue shuttles if necessary. I want survivors to return to their homeworlds with accurate reports of what they witnessed here." The communication channels remained open to all Council ships, ensuring that every alien commander could hear humanity's response to their attempted conquest. Admiral Zekthara, struggling to maintain basic life support on his flagship, made one final attempt to salvage the situation. "Human Admiral," he transmitted, his voice strained with barely controlled panic. "Surely we can negotiate a peaceful resolution to this misunderstanding. The Council's vote can be reconsidered. Your species can be granted full membership with all the privileges that entails." Hayes's expression didn't change. "Admiral Zekthara, there was no misunderstanding. Your council voted unanimously to annex our territory and redistribute our people. You came here with 40,000 warships to enforce that decision. The only misunderstanding was your assumption that we would submit quietly." Supreme Commander Zerion attempted to interject. "Admiral Hayes, the Hegemony Coalition is prepared to offer significant concessions. We can provide advanced technology, favorable trade agreements, even territorial concessions from our own space." "Commander Zerion," Hayes replied, "you're attempting to negotiate from a position of weakness. Your flagship, the mighty Worldbreaker, is currently dead in space with its main reactor offline. Your escort fleet is scattered across 3 star systems with no way to coordinate their movements. What exactly do you have to offer that we haven't already taken?" The truth of Hayes's words was undeniable. The Worldbreaker, pride of the Hegemony Coalition, hung powerless in space as its engineering crews frantically attempted to restore basic systems. The sabotage had been so subtle that the Hegemony's own maintenance protocols had spread the malicious code throughout their entire fleet network. Admiral Velkar of the Corvin, Confederation, made his own desperate plea. "Admiral Hayes, the Confederation is willing to recognize human sovereignty over all disputed territories. We can even provide reparations for any inconvenience this operation may have caused." Hayes turned to her communications officer. "Commander Walsh, display the current tactical situation for Admiral Velkar's benefit." The view screen shifted to show a real-time display of the Corvin fleet. Over 60% of their vessels were showing critical system failures. Their quantum disruptor arrays, once the pride of their military, were now nothing more than expensive scrap metal. Fighter squadrons drifted helplessly as their navigation systems failed to respond to pilot commands. "Admiral Velkar," Hayes said calmly, "your fleet is already providing reparations in the form of technological samples. My engineering teams are quite interested in studying your quantum disruptor technology. We've learned a great deal about its weaknesses. General Thrix Prime 7's transmission carried unprecedented desperation for a member of the collective. The breakdown of the hive mind had left individual Thrix experiencing emotions they were never meant to feel, creating chaos throughout their bioships. Admiral Hayes," he pleaded, "the collective is prepared to withdraw from all human territories immediately. We seek only safe passage for our remaining functional vessels." "General," Hayes replied, "your bioships are experiencing what humans call independence of thought. Your crews are learning to function as individuals rather than components of a hive mind. I'm curious to see how your species adapts to this new experience." The psychological warfare was as devastating as the technical sabotage. By demonstrating that humanity had anticipated and countered every aspect of the Council's military capabilities, Hayes was destroying their confidence in their own technological superiority. The aliens who had considered humans primitive were now confronting evidence that human technology was decades ahead of their own. Captain Morrison, commanding the destroyer Phoenix, opened a secure channel to Admiral Hayes. "Ma'am, we're receiving transmissions from the 3 Council species that abstained from the annexation vote. They're requesting permission to establish diplomatic contact." Hayes considered this development. "The Eldorian Republic, The Crystalline Assembly and the Nomad fleets had been the only council members to refuse participation in the planned annexation. Their abstention had been noted and appreciated by human intelligence services. Grant them secure communication access, Hayes decided. It's time to discuss the future of galactic politics with species that showed wisdom when others displayed arrogance. The secure channel opened to reveal 3 very different alien representatives. Senator Kydron of the Aldorian Republic appeared humanoid, except for her silver skin and large violet eyes. The Crystalline Assembly's representative was a living mineral formation that communicated through harmonic vibrations. The Nomad Fleet spokesman was an energy being housed within a mechanical framework. Admiral Hayes, Senator Kydron began. The Aldorian Republic wishes to formally apologize for the Council's actions. We recognize that humanity deserved the right to self-determination, regardless of the Council's territorial ambitions. The Crystalline Assembly's representative created a series of melodic tones that the translation system rendered as, "The Assembly finds the Council's behavior harmonically discordant. We seek to establish proper resonance with humanity's rightful sovereignty." The Nomad Fleet spokesman's mechanical voice carried undertones of respect. "The fleets have always honored the right of nomadic species to chart their own course. Humanity's resistance demonstrates the warrior spirit we value." Hayes nodded appreciatively. "Your species showed wisdom when others chose greed. Humanity remembers its friends as clearly as it remembers its enemies. When this situation is resolved, we will be interested in establishing formal diplomatic and trade relationships with nations that respect our independence." The message was clear to every council member listening. Humanity was offering rewards to those who had shown respect, while promising consequences for those who had chosen aggression. The galaxy's political balance was shifting in real time as species reconsidered their allegiances. Dr. Vasquez, monitoring the situation from Corvin Prime, activated her final surprise. Hidden deep within the Confederation's computer networks were data packages that would soon reveal every classified military project, every secret diplomatic agreement, and every covert operation the Korkans had conducted over the past 50 years. The information would be transmitted simultaneously to every other Council species, destroying the Confederation's intelligence, advantages, and diplomatic secrets. Admiral Felkar's horror was visible as his ship's computers began broadcasting classified information across open channels. "This is impossible. Our security systems are impenetrable." "Admiral," Hayes responded, "your security systems were designed by organic minds with predictable thought patterns. Our artificial intelligence systems found 17 different ways to penetrate your networks within the first week of analysis. Similar revelations were striking every Council fleet simultaneously. Secret military capabilities were being exposed, covert alliances were revealed, and classified research projects became public knowledge. The Council members who had united to destroy humanity now found themselves confronting evidence of each other's hidden agendas and secret betrayals. The Council's unity was always an illusion, Hayes observed as she watched the alien commanders turn on each other. Your alliance was based on mutual greed and shared arrogance. Now that humanity has demonstrated the consequences of underestimating us, you're free to consider the real costs of your decision. The 40,000 ship armada that had entered human space with confidence and unity was now a scattered collection of disabled vessels, commanded by officers who no longer trusted their allies or their own equipment. The Council's military power had been shattered not through direct confrontation, but through superior planning and execution. But Admiral Hayes knew that the real test was yet to come. Destroying the invasion fleet was only the first step in humanity's plan to reshape galactic politics. The Council would attempt to recover from this defeat, and when they did, they would find that humanity's preparations extended far beyond military capabilities. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. High Chancellor Zexvara's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The attempted annexation of human space had become the greatest military disaster in Council history, but the implications extended far beyond a single failed operation. "Order, order," Chancellor Zexvara demanded, her voice creating harmonic distortions in the chamber's acoustic system. "We must address the immediate crisis before panic spreads further." The chamber was noticeably less crowded than during the previous session. Representatives from dozens of species were absent, their governments too busy dealing with internal crises to attend council meetings. The revelation of classified information had triggered political upheavals throughout the galaxy, as populations learned of their leaders' secret activities. Ambassador Kethral of the Viridian Empire stood slowly, his 4 eyes reflecting exhaustion and defeat. Honored Chancellor, the situation is far worse than initial reports suggested. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected human vessels operating throughout the galaxy. They've been there for decades, possibly centuries, completely undetected by our surveillance networks. The chamber erupted in alarmed murmurs. The idea that humans had been operating covertly throughout Council space for generations challenged every assumption about their primitive capabilities. Impossible, declared Representative Morthak of the Silicon Confederacy. Our sensor networks would have detected any significant human presence. Their technology is generations behind our own. Kethral activated a holographic display, showing sensor logs from the past 72 hours. Representative Morthak, these recordings show human vessels decloaking near 14 different Council homeworlds simultaneously. They appeared as if from nowhere, transmitted a simple message, then vanished again. The hologram displayed a series of identical transmissions, each one delivered by a different human ship to a different world. The message was brief but chilling in its implications. Humanity is watching. We have always been watching. Remember this when you consider our friendship or enmity. Senator Velnara of the Aquatic League rose from her environmental tank. The economic implications are becoming clear. Human operatives have been integrated into our financial systems for decades. They've just demonstrated the ability to manipulate our markets at will. The truth was devastating. Across the galaxy, stock markets crashed as automated trading programs activated hidden protocols installed by human agents. Currency exchanges experienced sudden fluctuations that wiped out speculative investments. Resource allocation systems malfunctioned, creating shortages of critical materials on dozens of worlds. Dr. Elena Vasquez had returned to Earth, but her work on Corvin Prime continued to bear fruit. The Confederation's financial networks were experiencing cascading failures as hidden programs activated throughout their banking systems. Centuries of accumulated wealth were being redistributed, according to algorithms that the Korkans couldn't understand or control. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that should not exist, admitted General Kaktar of the Military Assessment Division. Their technology appears to be at least 50 years ahead of our most optimistic projections. Our intelligence services have been systematically deceived for over 2 centuries. Chancellor Zexavara's form flickered more rapidly as the scope of the disaster became clear. What is the current status of our invasion fleet? Admiral Zekthara's image appeared on the main display, transmitted from a rescue ship in human space. His once proud uniform was torn and stained, his mandibles showing signs of stress fractures. Chancellor, the fleet has suffered 93% casualties. Most ships were disabled rather than destroyed, but they remain helpless in human space. Admiral Hayes has offered to return our crews and provide safe passage for damaged vessels, but only under specific conditions. What conditions? The Chancellor demanded. Complete withdrawal from all human territories, formal recognition of human sovereignty, public apology from the Council leadership, and reparations for the cost of our invasion attempt. Additionally, humanity demands the right to establish formal diplomatic missions on all Council homeworlds. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council, which had always dictated terms to lesser species, was being presented with an ultimatum by the very species they had attempted to annex. Representative Gexnall of the Trade Federation spoke hesitantly. Perhaps we should consider their terms. The economic disruption alone is causing massive problems throughout our territory. If they can maintain this level of interference indefinitely, you're suggesting we surrender to primitives? Interrupted Commander Nexhar of the Stellar Navy. The Council has never yielded to external pressure. Commander, Kethral replied wearily. The primitives just destroyed 40,000 of our best warships without losing a single vessel of their own. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our assumptions about human capabilities. The debate continued for hours as Council members struggled to comprehend the new reality. Everything they thought they knew about humanity had been deliberately false. The species they had dismissed as harmless backwater colonists possessed technology that made Council science look primitive by comparison. Ambassador Sarah Chen entered the chamber under heavy security escort, her diplomatic immunity the only thing protecting her from the anger of council members who blamed her for their current predicament. Her calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the chaos surrounding her. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's enhancement system. "Humanity is prepared to discuss terms for ending this crisis. However, we will no longer accept being treated as a minor species deserving of council protection." Chancellor Zexavara's form stabilized slightly as she focused on practical solutions. "Ambassador Chen, what exactly does humanity want from the council?" "Recognition of our sovereignty, equal representation in galactic affairs, and assurance that no council member will attempt territorial expansion into human space. In exchange, we're prepared to share certain technological advances and provide assistance with the economic disruption currently affecting your worlds." The offer was carefully calculated. Humanity was demonstrating both the stick and the carrot, showing that they could cause massive damage while also offering benefits for cooperation. Senator Kydrin of the Aldorian Republic stood to address the chamber. The Republic formally supports humanity's right to council membership and full diplomatic recognition. Their response to aggression was proportionate and showed remarkable restraint considering their obvious technological superiority. The crystalline assembly's representative created harmonious tones expressing agreement. The nomad fleets transmitted their support through quantum communications. Other species began voicing similar sentiments as they realized that alliance with humanity offered more benefits than continued opposition. Representative Thekvar of the Research Collective raised a critical question. "Ambassador Chen, what guarantees can humanity provide that they won't use their technological advantages aggressively against council members?" Sarah Chen smiled slightly. "Representative Thekvar, humanity has been capable of destroying any council member for over a century. The fact that your homeworld still exists demonstrates our peaceful intentions. We prefer cooperation to conquest, but we will not tolerate attempts at subjugation." The message was clear and undeniable. Humanity had possessed the power to attack council members for generations, but had chosen restraint instead of aggression. This demonstration of ethical behavior was perhaps more impressive than their technological capabilities. Over the following days, council members began accepting the new reality. The Viridian Empire, faced with complete economic collapse, formally recognized human sovereignty and requested technological assistance to repair their damaged infrastructure. The Corvan Confederation, struggling with the exposure of their classified programs, agreed to full diplomatic relations in exchange for help stabilizing their political situation. The Thrix Collective faced the most profound changes. The breakdown of their hive mind had created the first generation of individual Thrix consciousness in millennia. Dr. Wong's biochemical modifications couldn't be reversed, forcing the collective to adapt to a new form of social organization. Surprisingly, many individual Thrix reported experiencing emotions and creativity that had been impossible within the hive mind. Structure Admiral Hayes oversaw the return of council crews and the salvage of their disabled vessels. True to humanity's word, medical assistance was provided to injured aliens and safe passage was granted to all who requested it. The demonstration of mercy after victory impressed even former enemies. The galaxy was learning that humanity possessed not only advanced technology and superior strategic thinking, but also ethical principles that guided their actions. The species that had been dismissed as primitive barbarians were teaching the galaxy's supposedly advanced civilizations lessons about honor, restraint, and the proper use of power. As news of the Council's defeat spread throughout the galaxy, other species began requesting diplomatic contact with humanity. The political balance that had remained. 2 years after the failed annexation attempt, the galaxy looked vastly different. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had been redesigned to accommodate humanity's new status as a major power, with Ambassador Sarah Chen now occupying one of the primary delegate positions alongside the traditional founding species. President Maria Wilson stood at the podium of the newly reformed council, addressing delegates from over 400 species. Her presence marked the first time a human head of state had spoken before the full Galactic Assembly. But the respectful silence that greeted her words would have been unimaginable just years before. "Honored delegates," President Wilson began, Today marks the third anniversary of what historians are calling the Great Awakening. 3 years ago, this council voted to annex human territory, believing us to be helpless primitives. Today, we gather as equals to celebrate the new era of cooperation that decision ultimately created. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The council's attempt to destroy humanity had instead elevated them to a position of unprecedented influence in galactic affairs. Human technology had proven superior to anything previously known. But more importantly, humanity's ethical approach to power had earned them allies throughout the galaxy. Admiral Janet Hayes, now serving as humanity's first galactic defense coordinator, provided an update on the reformed security structures. The new Mutual Defense Alliance now includes over 200 species, all committed to preventing the kind of aggressive expansion that characterized the old council system. No single species or alliance will again possess the power to annex another's territory without consequences. The transformation had been remarkable. The old council structure, based on the dominance of a few founding species, had been replaced by a more democratic system where membership was earned through ethical behavior rather than military might. Humanity's influence came not from threats or coercion, but from their willingness to share technology and expertise with species that demonstrated peaceful intentions. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now directing the Interspecies Technology Exchange Program, reported on the scientific advances made possible by cooperation. The integration of human dimensional folding technology with crystalline assembly harmonic resonance has produced breakthroughs in faster-than-light communication that benefit the entire galaxy. The Eldorian Republic's biological research, combined with our genetic techniques, has eliminated 17 previously incurable diseases. The exchange of knowledge had created unprecedented prosperity throughout the galaxy. Human manufacturing techniques, previously hidden in dimensional facilities, were now being shared with species that met specific ethical and environmental standards. The result was a technological revolution that lifted entire civilizations while maintaining ecological balance. Ambassador Kethrall of the reformed Viridian Empire approached the podium with obvious humility. His species had undergone dramatic changes since their defeat. Abandoning their imperial ambitions in favor of cultural and scientific development, President Wilson, he said, "The Viridian people wish to formally thank humanity for the mercy shown during our darkest hour. Your decision to heal rather than harm our wounded, to rebuild rather than exploit our weakness, has taught us what true strength means." Similar transformations had occurred throughout the former council territories. The Corvan Confederation had restructured their government to eliminate the aggressive expansionism that had characterized their previous policies. The Thrix Collective, still adapting to individual consciousness, had discovered that creativity and innovation flourished when their people were free to think independently. General Thrix Prime 7, no longer connected to the hive mind, had become an advocate for individual rights throughout the galaxy. His transformation from a collective consciousness to an independent being had inspired countless other species to reconsider their own social structures. President Wilson, he said, "The gift of individual thought that your Dr. Wong provided to my people has been the greatest blessing in our species' history. We have discovered art, music, literature, and personal relationships that were impossible within the collective. Our population may have lost the efficiency of the hive mind, but we have gained something far more valuable: the ability to dream as individuals." The economic transformation had been equally dramatic. Human financial systems, based on sustainable development and equitable resource distribution, had replaced the exploitative trade practices that had enriched the founding species at the expense of smaller civilizations. The new economic model created prosperity for all participants while protecting planetary environments. Captain Alex Morrison, now commanding humanity's first diplomatic vessel, the UHSV Harmony, reported on exploration missions beyond the galaxy's traditional boundaries. Human deep space surveys have identified over 50 new species in previously unexplored regions. All have been contacted using peaceful diplomatic protocols, and 17 have already expressed interest in joining the galactic community. The expansion of the galactic community had proceeded carefully, with humanity insisting that new members demonstrate peaceful intentions and ethical governance before receiving advanced technology. The result was steady growth of the alliance without the aggressive expansion that had characterized previous eras. Dr. James Wong, continuing his research into biological systems, had made breakthrough discoveries that revolutionized medical treatment throughout the galaxy. His work with the Thrix neural networks had led to treatments for mental disorders affecting dozens of species. His biochemical techniques were being used to enhance agricultural production on worlds previously unable to feed their populations. The greatest discovery, Dr. Wong reported, has been that cooperation produces results impossible through competition or domination. Every species brings unique capabilities to our alliance. The combination of diverse knowledge creates solutions that no single civilization could achieve alone. The old council chamber had been transformed into a museum, commemorating the events that led to galactic reformation. Visitors could view recordings of the original annexation vote, examine wreckage from the failed invasion fleet, and learn about the human operatives who had worked for decades to prepare for the crisis. Ambassador Sarah Chen, reflecting on her role in the transformation, addressed the assembled delegates with words that would be remembered for generations. 3 years ago, you voted to destroy us because you believed might made right. Today we stand together as proof that wisdom, patience, and ethical behavior create lasting strength. Humanity didn't defeat the Council through superior firepower alone. We succeeded because we understood that true victory comes from turning enemies into friends, not from leaving devastation in our wake. The chamber erupted in applause that included species that had once planned humanity's destruction. The sound represented more than approval of Chen's words. It celebrated the transformation of galactic civilization from a collection of competing empires into a genuine community of equals. President Wilson concluded the session with an announcement that surprised even her closest advisors. Today, humanity formally proposes the establishment of the Galactic Exploration Initiative, a joint program to push beyond our current boundaries and seek new knowledge among the stars. We invite all member species to contribute their expertise to this endeavor, which will be guided by principles of peaceful contact and mutual respect. The proposal was approved unanimously, marking the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The species that had once fought over existing territory would now work together to explore infinite possibilities beyond their current borders. As the session concluded, delegates from hundreds of worlds departed with renewed optimism for the future. The galaxy had learned that cooperation created greater prosperity than conquest, that diversity generated more innovation than uniformity, and that ethical leadership produced more lasting security than military dominance. The Council's attempt to annex human space had indeed changed galactic civilization forever, but not in the way they had intended. Instead of destroying a minor species and dividing their resources, they had awakened humanity's true potential and discovered that their supposed prey was actually the teacher the galaxy had been waiting for. Humanity's wrath had been unleashed not as destructive force, but as a transformative power that reshaped an entire galaxy's understanding of what civilization could become. The Council had paid the price for their arrogance, but that payment had purchased something more valuable than any territory: the wisdom to build a better future for all species among the stars.